Gentlemen,
Nerds, look,
thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
of course.
I read both of your books. I love them. Um, I I'm just in awe of both your works. Um,
Thank you so much.
and On to my first question. Both your books are scheduled to be released May 30th. What was that a coincidence or planned?
It's a war. It's a war. It's a war in our household. Who's gonna win? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was a complete coincidence. We have different publishers, different agents. We wrote the books kind of at different times. So it's just a matter of fate, I guess, that these books are coming out at the same time, other than June for Pride Month is a popular time for queer stories.
Yeah.
And I was just going to follow up with that, what you were just talking about, Byron. Is there any type of healthy competition going on about your book coming out at the same time?
I think that's a great way to put it. Healthy competition, don't you think?
Yeah.
For me, it's a huge benefit. Steven has had so many books published already and is so celebrated. He's so smart and talented that it's great for me to be able to go to him and say, I'm stuck on this story point, or is this normal, for in the business side of things, or to just get his advice about the industry and all that stuff. So for me, it's all pros. We get to tour a little bit together.
Yeah, I think a lot of our writer friends would assume that it's a nightmare, but we've chosen to lean into it and just have fun. And as Byron mentioned, it allows us to do some joint events together, which is something we never got to do before. And so it really is, a joy to kind of launch these books together.
Nice.
Now you want the real answer? Just kidding.
Steven, congratulations on the Gunkel winning the Thurber Prize for American Humor. Has the moment that your book was announced as winner sunk in yet?
That's a great question. So yeah, thank you so much. The prize ceremony in Columbus, Ohio was where James Thurber was from, was almost a month ago already. So I think it's starting to sink in. I was on cloud nine, when they call your name, you don't know ahead of time. It's much like the Oscars in that all the finalists were there and they had an accountant with a briefcase and an envelope and everything. So, when they announced my name, it truly was a real surprise. And I think I was floating around on cloud nine for about a week or so, but it's starting to sink in, and I'm incredibly grateful. But now I feel the pressure to be funny all the time. So we'll see.
Well, there's a few moments I've seen that the celebrants of that, so I think you've achieved that.
Good.
Byron, in your second novel, upcoming second novel, Big Gay Wedding, each of the core characters gets their own time to shine. None more so than Victoria, the soon-to-be mother-in-law of the main character, Barnett, whom I envision as Christine Baranski when I read it.
Oh, that's it.
Was her speech to the homophobes in part 6 meant to be a fourth wall breaking moment, given the current political climate of this country towards the LGBTQ community?
Ooh, that's really smartly framed.
That is smartly framed. I wish I could say that I was a brilliant activist and that was a comment on that. But do you know, and I hope it is, because what's going on to our fellows in the LGBTQ plus community is terrible. What was on my mind when I wrote that speech to the homophobes was language I wish I had when I was younger, and when I needed a voice and I needed the words to stand up for myself and my community and didn't have them. So I thought about that a lot, and I wonder if young people reading that will be able to take some of that language and apply it, say the things that need to be said about equality and fairness and life and love and all of it.
Wow.
If I can just jump in for a second too.
Yeah.
Someone asked me very recently, because I write books with a mix of of straight and gay characters a lot of time. And someone was asking if I included the gay characters for people who may not be exposed to queer literature a lot. And, you know, the answer that I gave was similar to Byron's. I kind of write for younger me, who was very much looking for stories when I was coming out. This is now, I hate to put a year on it, but, you know, 30 years ago. And the sad truth of the fact at the time was that a lot of stories about gay people were very sad, about people living in the shadows, about lives tragically cut short. And now there is room, despite the current climate, you know, we have come a long way. And these are two books in Big Gay Wedding and the Celebrants that are hopefully joyful and filled with community and about lifelong friendships and making lifelong commitments. And so I think we're both a little bit right for our younger selves and those stories that we wish we could have found at that age.
Very profound. Steven, your novel, your new novel is coined as The Big Chill for Our Times by your publisher. What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, we did watch The Big Chill together early on during quarantine when we were all staying at home, and it was a movie I remember liking for its sort of cast of future Oscar winners. Although Glenn Close, your day is coming. So you know, and it's a movie a lot of people remember for its soundtrack, for its sort of 60s Motown hits. But for it being a movie about middle age and struggling with what the back half of our lives are going to look like, I was shocked when rewatching it to learn that all the characters were 35. 35 is what used to be considered middle age. And in the 40 years since that movie was made, you know, we have thought about aging and what middle age is, I think, you know, and redefined it quite a bit. So I wanted to write a story that about true middle-aged characters today that felt like it addressed some of the more complex issues people that age may face today.
And a thing I noticed about the chapters of your book is they were all either James Carpenter songs or lyrics from Carpenter songs, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but each one of the lyrics has something to do with the chapter, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so I don't know, are you asking this, did you notice that because you were horrified or because you secretly like the Carpenters too? Because I love the Carpenters.
It's because I love the Carpenters, first of all, but us also parallels between the lyric and
it was just a way to help frame the story a little bit. I was listening to them quite a bit at the time I was starting writing, and I don't exactly remember why, but I've had a long held love of, you know, Richard and Karen, and I think there's like it always makes me feel very safe. It reminds me of maybe driving around with my mom running errands or something in the car. It's that sort of AM radio kind of sound to it that always makes me feel very safe. And got me thinking about sort of these characters and where they're feeling very out of control in their adult lives. And there was something about finding a song for each of them from the Carpenters catalog that allowed me to sort of picture them as younger too, and so where their lives have gone and what their dreams were and maybe how their lives turned out and how to reconcile those two if they were different. And so there's a lot of longing in that music. There's a lot of nostalgia in that music, and so there was something that just sort of put me in the mood when writing these characters.
Unlike Barnett, you and Steven had a small gay wedding, as you have said at a few different occasions, on April Fool's Day, no less. Were the intimate nuptials a spontaneous decision or something the both of you wanted since getting engaged?
It was something I think we both wanted. It felt right during COVID. I had just finished chemo for testicular cancer. I'm doing fine now. And so I think that both of those things really brought us together. And I think we were both just so ready. And there's a little part that it's like, it's easier to have a small wedding and not invite everyone during COVID. So we really did just lean into that. it was just the two of us, and our good friend Aaron was our officiant, and Steven found this really cool house here in Palm Springs that is historic and hasn't been remodeled since the 60s. So it had all that cool mid-century modern vibe, and it all just felt right and ready, right?
I'm kind of sensing a theme with us now in that we are presented with circumstances and we just lean in. So, because it was during COVID, instead of feeling sad that we couldn't have a giant wedding with everyone that we could have invited, we really embraced going small and finding meaning in that too. It's the same as the publishing dates, it was out of our control. So instead of sort of raging war against it, why not lean into it and find the joy and the benefit in that as well. That's sappy. That's sappy.
It is sappy. It is sappy, but I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
All right, you can keep it.
Byron, in a letter you wrote to librarians about Big Gay Wedding, I found that online. You said supporting libraries is a top priority. Across the country, pressure to ban books in school and public libraries seems to be at an all-time high, with books on LGBTQ plus issues and racial issues being the most common targets. What are your feelings about this assault on libraries?
God, it is ridiculous. It's outrageous, and it never works. Like, people will rise up, and is Stephen King the writer who says to kids who are in schools and libraries that have banned books, go find out what books they're banning and read all of them. See what they don't want you to know. And my heart goes out to librarians who hold a special place in my heart. When I was growing up in high school, I didn't always fit in. And so for our lunch break, I would usually spend that in the library, kind of hiding out. Because I didn't have other friends. I wasn't part of other cliques. Even the nerds were kind of like, didn't want me. So libraries are special to me. This assault on books and on libraries is outrageous.
It's also boring. We've done
boring.
this before. We've settled this before. They're trying to ban Judy Blume again, is at the top of every list. These are books that I read 50 years ago. Is it, not quite that long, but 40 years ago as a kid. And I turned out fine. In fact, I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much. So it's just, all these old tropes again, having to ban books and to call gay people groomers and all that. It's just, not only is it, evil, but it's just also so unimaginative. It's like, come up with something new.
Yeah, I did say that like a while back about how they're repeating Anita Bryant.
Yeah. It didn't work the first time. I don't know what makes you think it's going to work a second time, especially when kids can be so much more connected and have so much more access to information. Listen, every parent has the right to stop their child from reading a book, but they can't stop every child. You're not allowed to make that decision for every family. And so, we stand with libraries always.
Very nice. Both of you are successful writers. How would you describe your individual approaches and routines concerning writing?
Are we successful? That's where the real imposter syndrome sets in. But I guess we are. Do you want to start with the?
Well, so the writing process for me, I kind of try to follow the energy. So sometimes I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and I'll have this idea and I'll go to the computer and then I'll write for a few hours. And then I take a break when I hit a
get
block.
up.
Yeah, when Steven wakes up, starts making coffee and eating cereal loudly. No, that's kind of my process. You're much more disciplined, I think. Steve is like, I'm going to hit this many words today.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as sort of hitting a word count a day, which doesn't mean they're always great words, but they're words. And particularly like doing a first draft. It's very different now, though, in the weeks leading up to publication. Both of us are very busy with pre-pub media and things that, other things that requires, that now, where I think we both try to write sometimes in the morning, that we have to wait until afternoon here in California, where it's after 5 o'clock in New York, when we're not going to hear from our publishers until things quiet down a little bit. So I've been doing some evening writing as of late, because the day is filled with other activities getting ready for the launch of these 2 books.
Do you find inspiration from each other and your respective bodies of work?
Oh my God, yeah. I think you're brilliant. I love Steve's work. I love his mix of heart and humor, and I hope that I can bring some of that to my own writing. So that's a big part of it. And we're also inspired just by everyday things. Like, I think he's fun, and he'll say something clever, and I'll think, oh, maybe I'll use that. Or we'll go have dinner with friends, and they'll say something crazy, and then we get in the car afterwards. We're like, I'm using that. No, I'm using that. So I think it's a really great creative environment.
Yeah, I think it also helps too that we write in similar genres. If you like my books, you're going to love Byron's books, and if you love Byron's books, hopefully you'll like my books. It's different than if one of us wrote speculative science fiction or something, completely different. So I think we're able to lean on each other in a way that's very complementary. That when we read each other's works, we can have hopefully good ideas and suggestions, and that it makes sense.
Okay. Steven, what character was the hardest character for you to write in the Celebrants?
Oh, goodness. Well, so the Celebrants is about a group of college friends who reunite periodically over a 30-year period since their graduation in the mid-90s. And so they're a diverse group. And for the first time in writing a book, I had sensitivity readers for some of the characters too, because I wanted to make sure in these times in particular that I'm getting these characters just right. There are a couple of straight men in there too. I didn't have a sensitivity reader for those characters, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch to sometimes to relate. I think I write women characters pretty well, and the gay characters I've got down. And so I think the stretch was the straight male characters. So go figure.
All right. What books inspire you guys that you've read? What?
Well, I think we both go through sort of moods and phases of what we're reading. Right now, I'm kind of looking back at classic stuff. Cavalier and Clay is one of my favorites. So we think, and then sometimes we're into like the latest stuff. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah. We try to keep abreast of what's popular too, and what everyone else is reading right now. I just read Lessons in Chemistry, which is a huge book right now. It's been on the bestseller list for a year, because I wanted to know how that is resonating with everybody. Sometimes it's good to go back and reread the classics. I was talking about the books that I sought out as a young man. It's fun to revisit those now with the lens of knowing that I have found happiness and a great life, and try to reconcile how I was a scared kid reading them the first time. Talking books like Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin or something. And then also, like, I love to see what's being written for young people today as well. I got like everyone last year, I fell in love with the Heartstopper adaptation that was on Netflix. And so I picked up all the graphic novels to read those. And it's really fun to see that queer youth today are allowed crushes, open crushes and puppy love and first experiences that we largely had to hide or suppress when we were young. So that's very joyful as well.
And we have friends with some books coming out that are pretty brilliant. Manuel de Betancourt's Emile Gazed, and Matt Baum's book. I think it's Honey, I'm Homo.
I thank you guys for taking the time.